Welcome to InfoVerse, where history speaks through time. Rome once ruled the world. But power shifted, faith rose, and the empire began to break. Rome Part 2, Constantine and the Fall. Missed Part 1? Link in description. Subscribe for more epic history, only on InfoVerse. In the year 312 CE, Constantine won a decisive battle against his rival Maxentius at the Milvian Bridge. This victory paved the way for him to become the sole ruler of both the western and eastern parts of the Roman Empire. Though he had already been in power since 306, it wasn't until 324 that he gained full control. Believing that his success came through the help of Jesus Christ, Constantine began to introduce new laws that changed the empire forever. One of the most important was the Edict of Milan in 313, which officially allowed people to freely follow any religion, especially Christianity, which had faced persecution for years. Just like earlier emperors had connected themselves to gods to boost their power, Caracalla linked himself with Serapis and Diocletian with Jupiter. Constantine chose to align himself with Jesus Christ. In 325 CE, he led the First Council of Nicaea, a major meeting that helped define Christian beliefs. There, leaders debated key topics like whether Jesus was divine and which sacred texts should be included in what would later become the Bible. Beyond religion, Constantine worked hard to strengthen the empire. He improved the economy by adjusting the currency, made changes to the military, and created a new capital city. He built it on the ancient site of Byzantium, naming it New Rome, but it would soon be known as Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul. Constantine is remembered today as Constantine the Great, a title given by later Christian writers who saw him as a hero of their faith. But many historians point out that his greatness also came from much more than religion. He was a skilled reformer, a strong military leader, and a visionary builder who reshaped Roman culture and politics. However, after his death, the peace he built began to crumble. His sons inherited the empire but soon turned against each other in a struggle for power, putting Constantine's hard-won legacy at risk. After Constantine's death, his three sons, Constantine II, Constantius II, and Constans, divided the empire among themselves. But peace didn't last long. Jealousy and ambition led to fights over who should control more, and in the end, both Constantine II and Constans were killed in the struggle. Constantius II eventually ruled alone, but he died later after naming his cousin Julian as the next emperor. Julian, often called Julian the Apostate, ruled briefly from 361 to 363 CE. In those 2 short years, he tried to restore the strength of ancient Rome by introducing reforms to make the government more efficient. Julian, a follower of Neoplatonic philosophy, openly rejected Christianity. He believed that the empire's decline was partly due to Constantine's support of the Christian faith. Though he officially promoted religious tolerance, his actions told a different story. Julian quietly removed Christians from powerful government roles, banned the teaching and spread of Christianity, and even barred Christians from serving in the army. While leading a military campaign against Persia, Julian was killed, bringing an end to the dynasty founded by Constantine. As the last pagan ruler of Rome, history remembers him as Julian the Apostate because of his efforts to turn the empire away from Christianity. After Julian's death, Emperor Jovian briefly took power. He quickly reversed Julian's policies, restored Christianity as the empire's main religion, and cancelled the laws that had restricted it. Soon after, leadership passed to Theodosius I, who ruled from 379 to 395 CE. Theodosius pushed religious change even further. In 380, he officially declared Christianity the state religion of Rome. He banned all forms of pagan worship, shut down ancient schools and universities tied to those beliefs, and transformed many pagan temples into Christian churches, firmly establishing Christianity as the spiritual foundation of the empire. During Theodosius I's reign, one of the most symbolic changes was the closing of Plato's famous academy, an ancient center of learning. His strict religious reforms weren't welcomed by everyone. Many Roman nobles and everyday citizens still followed traditional pagan beliefs and resented the sudden shift. For centuries, Roman religion had been closely tied to daily life and public duty. But now, that connection was broken. Christianity introduced a very different view of the world. One God in heaven, far removed from the many gods who once lived among humans in temples and myth. Unlike the old Roman gods, who were seen as protectors of the empire, the Christian God was viewed as a universal deity, one who cared for all people, not just Rome. This shift created a divide between religion and the Roman state. In earlier times, religious festivals and public rituals were backed by the government and helped boost its image and power. But under Theodosius I, that connection faded. He focused so heavily on spreading Christianity that other responsibilities of leadership were often left behind. In the end, Theodosius would be the last emperor to rule over both the Eastern and Western Roman empires. From the year 376 to 382, the Roman Empire faced a series of battles against a group called the Goths. These fights are now known as the Gothic Wars. One of the most important battles happened on 9th August 378, the Battle of Adrianople. In that battle, Roman Emperor Valens, who ruled from 364 to 378, was defeated. Many historians see this moment as a major turning point in the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Over time, people have suggested many different reasons for why the empire collapsed. But even today, there is no single answer that everyone agrees on. One famous historian, Edward Gibbon, believed that Christianity played a big part in the fall. In his book The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, he argued that the new religion weakened the values and traditions that paganism once gave to Roman society. The idea that Christianity caused the fall of the Roman Empire was actually debated long before Edward Gibbon wrote about it. Back in the early 400s, a Christian writer named Orosius spoke out against that claim. Around the year 418, he argued that Christianity wasn't to blame at all. In fact, he said it was the old pagan beliefs and practices that had led Rome to fall. Of course, historians today believe there were many different reasons behind the empire's collapse. Some of the main causes include political instability caused by the empire's huge size, the east and west sides of the empire looking out for themselves, invasions by barbarian tribes, corruption inside the government, dependence on hired soldiers who weren't loyal, heavy reliance on slave labor, widespread unemployment and rising prices. The Roman Empire had grown so large that even after it was split into two parts, it became almost impossible to manage. The Eastern Roman Empire continued to grow and prosper, while the Western half faced more and more problems. Instead of helping each other, both sides focused on their own needs. They didn't act like allies. They saw each other more as rivals. At the same time, Germanic tribes were becoming stronger and kept attacking Roman lands. These invasions could have been handled better, but government corruption made things worse, especially among local governors. On top of that, the way the Romans treated the Goths was often unfair, which only added to the tensions and made the situation more dangerous. Over time, the Roman army changed. It became filled with hired soldiers from outside the empire, people who had no real connection to Rome. These mercenaries didn't always fight with the same loyalty, and because of that, the military could no longer protect the empire's borders as well as before. At the same time, the government was struggling to collect taxes from distant provinces. Another big issue was the economy. Years earlier, under the Severan dynasty, Roman coins were made with less precious metal. This weakened the currency and caused prices to rise, a problem known as inflation. On top of that, the heavy use of slave labor meant fewer jobs for everyday Roman citizens, leading to more unemployment. In the 3rd century, a group called the Visigoths entered the empire, trying to escape the fierce Huns. But after arriving, they rebelled several times, and those uprisings became another major problem that pushed the empire closer to collapse. The Western Roman Empire officially came to an end on 4th September, 476. That was when the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was removed from power by a Germanic king named Odoacer. Some historians, however, say the true end came a few years later in 480, when another former emperor, Julius Nepos, died. While the West collapsed, the Eastern Roman Empire continued. It became known as the Byzantine Empire and lasted all the way until 1453. In the beginning, people still called it the Roman Empire. But over time, it changed so much that it no longer looked like the empire of old. Centuries later, the idea of the Western Roman Empire was brought back in a new form, called the Holy Roman Empire, which lasted from 962 to 1806. But this version was very different and only kept the name. It was not truly the same empire that once ruled the ancient world. The empire that once ruled the world was no more, but its legacy would echo through all of history. Thanks for watching InfoVerse. Subscribe for more epic history, from empires to enigmas. Drop a like, share the story, and explore more in the playlist below.